Yeah, all right, cool. We're like milliseconds, if anything. Tatum said?
Free throw,
Yep.
number one.
Sweet. All right, yeah, we're really right there. So, guys, we are watching the end of Game 3 in the NBA Finals, Boston Celtics versus the Golden State Warriors. So, if you guys are following along, or if you guys are watching this in the future, you guys already know who's going to be winning this game. But we're kind of traveling it in through the past, and kind of just doing a live reaction to the last 2 minutes
Yeah.
of the game. So,
And if you're watching years from now, we are in the year 2022 right now.
So for those who didn't watch the game, I guess they'll still be kind of cool for you guys too. So it is 116 Celtics, and the Warriors are at 100.
And this is game 3, and the series is currently tied at 1 apiece.
One, and they are in Boston. Boston is known for being tough.
Yes, Celtics won game number 1 in San Francisco, which was big.
Yeah.
Right? And then the Warriors pretty much crushed them by 18 points.
Yeah.
I mean, 18's not crushing, but like it wasn't close in the last couple minutes of that game. Like I think the Celtics just kind of gave up game 2.
And we'll note that the starters have been pulled, so it's pretty much backup guys. So it's pretty much settled that Boston is winning this at this point, unless the bench guys just kind of go ham and get the game back, but that rarely happens. But yeah, I mean, this is big. This is big coming into Boston. Boston's definitely always been a tough stadium to go in and get a win. But Boston always plays better at home.
I mean, who doesn't?
Right.
But I mean, yeah, Boston is like real tough to score a win on their court.
Yeah. So I mean, I think from what I was saying, I think I was saying Warriors in 6. I still think we got a series, but from how these last 3 games have gone, it's probably going to go 7 games, and I might almost have to change my answer, but I'm not sure if I could do that. But it's going to be. I think this is going 7 games after how these first 3 games went. Because Celtics came out in game 1 and blew them out of the water. Warriors came back second game and were like, hey, we've been here before. We're not even looking at game 1. So this is an easy win for us. And they're playing in Boston tonight, and Boston showed them with home court advantage, how to play the effing game.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're down to 30 seconds left in the game. Garden State making up 16 points, and Celtics not scoring at all is just not probable.
No. Yeah, at this point, it's pretty much stick a fork in them.
Yeah. Well, let's see when the next game is
I think the next game will be either Saturday. I think they're doing almost every 3 days. I thought they were usually doing every 2.
Well, that was awful.
Yeah. And that's why you ride the bench, son.
Okay, so I went to Google the next game, and it's Google saying there's 1 second left in the fourth quarter, and it's still the same score. So
yeah.
So game 4,
they're pretty much done.
Yeah, game 4 is Friday at 9 p.m.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Friday in Boston. Then they go back to Golden State.
So they're back.
That would be game 5. Yeah.
Game 5 in San Fran is Monday, and then game 6 will be back in Boston next Thursday.
And then Warriors go game 7. That if they go game 7, and since it's going to be in Golden State, yeah. I mean,
that's going to be a freaking game to watch.
Yeah. So as we wrap this little thing up, your Boston Celtics take game 3 and kick it. Kick it. They take game 3 and move up in the series 2-1. Back to you, Wally.
Yeah.
It's gonna rain.
It's gonna rain. Thanks, Ali. Okay, so
They scored a basket.
they scored a basket. All right. Now, if you can just keep doing what you're doing, execute, and the Celtics will win the series.
If you don't know how to do pressure, know how to do it, think about it, and execute, and go on to do another game better. At first, I thought he was talking about Charles, but then Mark, the other guy, I'm like, yeah, he talks like that too. But he had the Charles Barkley tone to him too.
Yeah.
We're talking about Bill Burr's recent podcast over the last week. That was funny as
whoopsie. Oh my god!
If you guys haven't listened to Bill Burr's podcast, you guys definitely got to check that out.
Yeah, he does the Monday morning podcast. If you're into comedy like Anthony and I are, oh my god, this guy's been doing podcasts since podcasts were podcasts. Like, he's got like 15 years of content, and he does. I mean, I don't know, Anthony. Was he only doing once a week, and now he does twice a week? Like, I can't even tell you when he started doing Thursdays.
I think he was only doing Mondays, and then he was just doing Mondays for a little while, and then a couple years back he started the Thursdays along with it. So then he started doing Mondays and Thursdays, from what I think.
We'll have to look into that,
because I've noticed when he does the Thursdays, when he does the flashbacks, they are always in 2014. So from my thing,
they're always the same day, but from 7 years before, which is wild. So I would imagine after 7 years, he started doing like the playbacks. Which is pretty cool. It's cool. Like after the fact,
it's a lot of content,
Yeah, but you can also go back and be like, oh, this is what he was talking about 7 years ago. Like, to think where we were when we were 28, almost 29 years old, right?
Right, exactly.
Totally not where we are now, huh?
No,
not even a little bit. So with this game wrapped up, and we've got some things to talk about. So
yeah, we got a good show for you guys.
What do you say about cueing this intro, buddy?
Let's do it. And go.
What's up, everybody? How you doing? Jim Green here, aka Green Monster, with my co-host, my brother and best friend, Anthony Irvin, aka Magic. What is going on, my dude? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I am in a great mood tonight. And I had watched earlier one of my favorite bands that I grew up with, and they had just recently got back together in their like original lineup, and they're starting to tour across the US, and they're coming to Philly next month, and I'm really trying to go. And I watched their YouTube video. Somebody put up their set of their very first show back. For anybody watching this, if they know the band, if they're into like the post-hardcore, metalcore type music scene, the band Vanna broke up a couple years ago, and the original band, the original members of that band reformed and started a new band called In Spirit. And now they just put out an EP a couple months back, I think earlier last year, but also with their shows, they're playing a lot of their old Vanna tunes from their first full EP and their second, their first full length called The Alarm, and their second full length, Hope. I think there was another, I forget the full length of it, but I think it was called Hope. So they're playing tracks off of those two albums, and I think their EP, The Search Party Never Came. So if anybody's into that type of music, or they know Vanna, they were an awesome freaking band back then. Just high energy, melodic vocals, which I was a very big fan of, still am in that type of music scene, and I'm stoked to see them there. And just hearing a lot of their older songs and older tunes, I was so pumped up. And then just coming here to do an episode with you, having a good time. I started mixing my next single, so I'm trying to get the ball rolling on that, hopefully to get that out hopefully by next month. I still got to do some vocals on there, but I wanted to try to jumpstart some mixing. So I'm trying to get a lot of that stuff done. So a lot of stuff coming behind the scenes. And I finally got the confirmation. So I probably can say this to you guys. I'm playing in Egg Harbor next Saturday, June 18th, at the Retinol Winery Resort. I'll be playing in their wine tasting room. So if you want to come see me play, I'm playing from 4 to 7. Reservations are recommended definitely on the weekends. So if you want to come see me and hang out, make sure you get a reservation. So I'd love to see you guys come out. Uh, so those are my plugs for this week as of right now. But along with that, it was just a busy weekend for me. I had a wedding, and then just spending time with the family. Me and my wife had our 8th anniversary last night, wedding anniversary. So we got to hang out, do a couple adulting things, just watching TV and just kind of hanging out. That about sums that up. How was your week? I felt we hadn't really talked too much. This is the most amount we've talked in the last week since our last episode.
Yeah, man. I mean, you, I knew you had the wedding, busy day. I know you were, you said that was like you and Jen's first outing away from the baby, like the both of you
Yeah,
for
together.
like,
Yeah,
like an extended period of
yeah,
time.
for a definitely extended period amount of time. So yeah, that was definitely a first one. And I've been away from little man for an extended amount of time, but I know that she's been there. Uh, but this is the first time that me and her have been away from him. And then, but we had my parents watching him, so we knew he was in good hands. But, I think it kind of struck her a little bit more. I knew everything was going to be okay, and she knew. But I think as a mother, her motherly instincts is like, oh, I want to get back to my baby. I want to get back to my baby. So it was a good time, though. We were able to kind of just, have a couple drinks and, just enjoy the wedding, enjoy, kind of spending a little bit of time together. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I, you know, not having any uh, babies ever of my own, I'm sure that that first time with the both of you away for hours on end, I'm sure there's anxiety behind it. It's like, oh no, what if something happens? And it's like,
Hmm.
eh, it's, I mean, it's rare more than common that something like that happens. And that's why I think over time, the more that you guys do it, the more that you'll be like, they're fine. And it's not that you don't trust them, you don't trust little Tone in the
Right.
company of your parents. It's still, you want to be immediately available in the event of an emergency, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's where I'm sure lies, you know, the main anxiety of that. And
Yeah. And we got to
it's
FaceTime with him a little bit during, the little break that we had, and we got to see him for a little bit. And I think it just all kind of comes into play with, since we had him during the pandemic, mostly that first year of his life, we really didn't go out with him other than if it was, just going to a doctor's visit or going to my parents' house.
right.
So for almost that first year, he really didn't go anywhere. And even for us, we really didn't even go anywhere. So it's kind of been a cycle and a thing to kind of just be like, even like on these really good days and hotter days, it's kind of like for us like, oh yeah, crap, we got to get him out, because it is good to get him out, obviously, getting the fresh air and everything, but we're so still in our mindset of like, oh, we can't go outside, blah blah blah. So it's like it's been like planted in our brains of like, oh, it's just stay inside, blah blah blah. So it's like now, especially with the summer, like, and especially how things are going this summer, we're trying to do a lot more, and it's trying to get back into things of like, okay, let's get him out, let's do this, we'll put him in the little kiddie pool, and we'll go over here, we'll go over there. So just trying to rewire what we were so used to doing and trying to get back to, some type of normalcy in that way of just being like, oh, okay, let's just go here. Let's try to do like a whole, family thing this day or family thing that day instead of just being like, oh, well, it's just going to hang out in the house and watch Mickey all day.
Right. I mean, so like remind me because I don't remember, and maybe just to like document it here. So Lil Tone was born August of 2020. You know,
Yep.
I guess that was just about 5 months after the pandemic shut us down and everything. Do you remember like the month that you and Jen went back to work full time?
It was June in 2020.
You went back full time in June of
Well,
2020?
she went back June 2020 full time. I I guess we both kind of, because I was like part time. I took the first like 2-3 weeks off when everything shut down. Everybody had like a 3 week, vacation, and then
I
then
thought
I
you were
started doing
I thought you were working virtually.
technically for those 3 weeks. I had to do like a paper, which my boss never even really checked. So I think he was just more like a mindset of like, yeah, just do this and we'll check it. But he never really checked it. So I'm like, I could have had a 3 week vacation doing nothing.
Yeah.
But so then after that, I started part time doing like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing.
Right.
I got used to that. That was fun. Because I was like, "Ooh, I'm getting this. I'm getting the same pay for working less. I can get used to this."
I'm I'm saying after Lil Tone was born, like Jen
Yeah,
wasn't back. Jen wasn't
no,
back full time for a while,
no,
right?
she didn't. She was on maternity leave. I was about to say medical leave. uh, she was on maternity leave until November.
Okay.
So she was, I think, yeah, November. And I was working. I took 2 weeks off
Okay.
when he was born. And then I went back full time after those 2 weeks. So, just kind of, getting everything settled in and doing the whole, newborn, getting us all acclimated to everything. And then I went back full time. She didn't go back full time until November.
Okay.
So, it took her a little bit to get back into swinging things too, because especially when she was pregnant, she was off most of the time as well. So she almost didn't even work most of 2020, if you really think of it. So
I, I,
it took her a little bit because then in November, then she worked for 2-3 weeks. Then we had Thanksgiving break. She went back for another 3 weeks. Then we had Christmas and New Year's. So then she was off then. So even when she went back, she was only there for like
three
6 weeks.
weeks
Yeah,
off,
3 weeks.
3 weeks
3 weeks. All
off.
yeah.
Yeah.
So she really didn't have too much of a work schedule until when we went back after the New Year. That's when she really started going and doing like the 5 days a week and doing a full month and everything. So yeah, it took a little bit of time to get back, but there's always challenges.
Yeah. I didn't remember you guys going back that early. I guess it's just because like my my dad, uh, he works for the government, but like I think I think in like uh September 2020 or November 2020, he was there once or twice a week.
Hmm.
He didn't go back full time until like he was eligible for the vaccine, like
Gotcha.
like when it first rolled out, and they were basically like, "We want you back full time," which means get vaccinated. Like
Yeah.
without telling him that he had to. I think he tried to
Right.
fight. I think he tried to fight it off for a little bit because he was like unsure of the vaccine.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
But I think it was. I think they were also saying something where it was like, "Look, if you opt not to get vaccinated and you still want to work from home, we're gonna like do like a pay cut type thing." And he wasn't about that, so he was just like,
Whoopsie.
"Kid, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna get vaccinated and then get back to work." As much as he didn't want to, because he
Yeah.
got so used to like working from home and just like chilling out. I mean, it was basically a year for him
Yeah.
that he went from lockdown to having to go back full time. Like
Hmm.
he he was not looking forward to. I mean, I think that he's my dad's been a workhorse, horse, horse,
Her?
hearse. He's been a
Oh.
he's. I mean, he grew up on a farm. Like I know I've talked about this before, but
Mm.
like he thrives to be working hard because it's what he grew up knowing. It's what his dad taught him, kind of thing. So a year and some change after he went back full time. Now, I mean, it feels normal and not even normal. But my dad used to have to take the train into Philly, um, which was like an hour ride one way. He had like the train pass. Um,
Hmm.
but when they were bringing him back in full time, he was like, "I want a parking pass," and they were like, "Fine, done." I don't know if he was like, "I don't feel like taking public transportation. I don't feel it's safe," and they were like, "Okay."
Yeah.
He worked around the system. He figured it out.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I'm
mean,
sure he's not the only one that's been able to try to do that, you know?
he tried to find the positives in taking the train into the city at first because he's like, I don't have to pay for gas. I'm not putting wear and tear on my vehicle, but it's like you're stuck on the train and hitting all the stops on the way and back for an hour. He he would just read the news on his way into work, and then he would like probably nap on the way home. Um, which is it's fine. It's after a long day.
Yeah.
He would take the train in at like 6 a.m. He'd get to work by 7. He'd be done between 2 and 3 if he didn't get stuck there.
Uh-huh.
He'd be on the train between 3:30 and 4. We would see him between 5 and 5:30, rolling in. If and that was if I wasn't out teaching somewhere, that I would see him rolling at about that time, which was a rare occasion. Except for the summer. The summer schedules were always different back then.
Hmm.
But now he doesn't have to get to the train station by 6, because he used to leave the house at like 5:45 to get to the train station by 6. Now he walks out the door at like 6:10, 6:15, and only takes him a half hour to get to work. So like by 95,
Right.
Um, but yeah, he was out almost a whole year before going back full time. Um, and then I don't even know. I don't see him rolling home like with a mask anymore. So I'm guessing he hasn't had to wear one for some time. But I know like when he did go back full time, he had to wear one like pretty much all
Uh-huh.
day. Especially
Yeah.
working in the city, it was pretty much required for everybody.
Hmm. Yeah, Jen's work is still doing the max thing. One, I mean, it's understandable because they're working around kids and stuff. Uh,
Well,
and like,
the kids that she works with are all under the age of 5, and they're not. I mean, they're just now becoming eligible to be vaccinated, and that's
yeah,
yeah. So I get that.
because when I think the first like time that they cut the mask mandates off, they did like one day and they're like, okay, cool, you guys don't have to wear the masks. And then the next day, like, put the mask back on. So, so they did like one day without the mask, and then then they had to put the mask back on. But I think they're still doing. I think they took off a couple restrictions with it, but when you're inside the building, you still have to wear it. And they still do like drop offs. Like no parents can actually go in. They
Right.
bring their kid to the front door and then everything. But outside, you don't have to wear a mask anymore and stuff like that.
Nice.
And my mother-in-law, she's still working from home. She's been working from home since lockdown, since 2020. So she's been working from home.
Well, are they just kind of like, well, we've got you set up, so if you don't have to come in the office, you're good, kind of
That's
thing?
in a way of what they're saying. Like, it's. I think they're giving at this point. I think a couple months back they were like they're giving some people the option whether they want to go in or not, because she has a work computer so she can just work remotely, and log into her, system and everything right from her computer. So she can do anything that she needs to do from her homework computer, uh, that she could do, going in there. Uh, so I think they extended it to September. They're trying to get people back in, but they've been pulling it and like pushing it back for months now. So I mean, I don't think she minds it, but I think every once in a while it has its moments like, okay, this is boring. I need to do something.
Yeah, she
So
wants to get up and moving around a little bit, probably, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, um, sorry, mine got lost for a second.
Yeah.
my bad. I just started thinking about like seven things at the same time, so I apologize.
No,
um,
man.
so I mean, my my weekend, I had my first recital Saturday, which was like it was my first recital at this particular studio
Yeah.
because it's my first year at that one, and I gotta say, like, I had to be there by 9 a.m. to help do some little setup things, nothing major. I got stationed with what I was doing once the kids came in. We do like a check in to make sure all of the kids 13 and under are checked in because all of the kids 14 and up, like, we basically knew who they were as they were coming through.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then once everyone was checked in, I told my director, like, everyone's checked in, which means we could probably start the show kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, some like very minor like super minor setbacks and people were still coming in through the door and checking their tickets at the door by the time the show was supposed to start at 11, so I think we started at like 10 after. um
Gotcha.
None of their I can't say none, but virtually none of their competition pieces actually performed the recital. So it was all just recital pieces,
Uh-huh.
um which was different for me. So the first act was like 18 dances. Intermission was like 10, 15 minutes tops. And then we ran the second act. We got to the end. Um, we rolled up the Marley floor that the studio had to bring in to set on the high school. It was actually a middle school
Mhm.
that the recital was at. The middle school auditorium, because I had been in that particular high school before, the middle school auditorium, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that. Oh my God.
Oh my god.
I was like, I can't believe this is a middle school. It was really nice, right? So the show ran like really smooth. There was hardly any dead space in between. There was like maybe one or two costume changes where like audience was waiting for like maybe 45 seconds tops in the dark.
Yeah.
But by the time we were packed up and out of there, like, I think Cheyenne and I were out of there at like 2:30, and then we had the rest of the day. So it was like,
Nice.
this is really, I mean, I did talk to a couple parents tonight at that because they still have classes the 2 weeks after the recital.
Yeah.
So I did get feedback from a couple of the parents that said we really enjoy the show. I was like, I had nothing to do with it. I was just doing what I was told. um, but I was like, I will say, like, I've been to about a dozen different studios recitals to be able to say pros and cons of each. Like, the parents were like, I wish they didn't only do one show because they work for months on the recital piece only to go on stage, do it once, and then it's done.
Yeah.
Um, and the one parent was like, "Yeah, I'm so tired of the comp pieces because I mean that that competition team, they do a lot of competition, so the pieces are ran a lot, and
Mhm.
they're wrapped up anywhere between September and November, so it's like 6 months after the fact. The kids are like, I'm ready to like put this one to rest and let's learn new stuff, which is it's nice. The kids get excited for something new because they work on the same thing for an entire year. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that recital went. It was one of the smoothest I'd ever been to. I think it was because there weren't a million acts. Um, the dancers weren't completely worn out by the end. I mean, I could tell they were getting like a little fatigued towards the end. Um, but yeah, they were fine. No technical difficulties. Everything was like once the show was rolling, there were no issues with the sound, no issues with the lights, no issues with the microphones. Like
Hmm.
it worked out really, really well. Yeah, I mean, I have another recital. Um, well, by the time this is published, Friday, or it is now 12:08 a.m. Thursday morning. We actually had to record Wednesday night. Um, we typically record Tuesday nights. We were
Yeah,
trying to
so
find a time.
it'll be the 10th.
It'll be Friday the 10th by the time that this is coming out. So I have a
Hmm.
recital as of when this is published tonight. Um, this studio has 63 numbers, 3 acts, and the show accumulates to about 3.5 hours. It's
Wow.
it's a long one, but it is their 70th annual recital. They have been
Wow.
they have been in business for 70 years. It's about, I think it's the longest in the local area that I've seen. Um, so
Yeah.
for people to say this is such a really long recital, I'm like, well, there's a lot of students, and this studio has been in business for 7 decades now, so they're probably doing something right,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. I think
So
they've earned the right to either sit down or get out.
yeah, yeah, sure. I mean,
So I have a question for you. If I don't mean to, I'm not sure if you were. Did you have any more to elaborate? I have a question for you, but if you have more to say with how your recitals went.
no, I mean, that was just this past weekend. I had a makeup class Sunday. I went to a graduation party Sunday evening, and that was my weekend. I mean, yeah, I did my Monday jersey rehearsal that I normally do.
Hmm.
Uh, hung out with my buddy that I normally see on Mondays. It was his last Monday teaching in my local area, so we had usually gotten together every Monday. Um, he's not teaching there moving forward, so that's not going to be. We're going to have to navigate like hanging on the weekends now, which you know how that
Hmm.
goes. It's kind of a task in itself.
Yeah. Right.
So I have another recital next week, but I can talk about that one on the next episode, which is fine. I'll recap this upcoming one next week,
Yeah.
preview that one, and then recap that one the following week. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. I know the recital talk I can kind of get into, but I mean, if you haven't been to a dance recital, or you have and it's been like an experience, I remember. I'll actually save that. That's fine. I'll save that for a different time. Uh, your question you were going to ask. Go ahead.
No, just the fact, and we may have talked about this not on the podcast, but as we talk about a lot of music and dance stuff, but is I know there's differences in probably like dance structure between a competition dance and something for a recital, but is there like, with that, is there like a different mindset that you usually you know in when you're either choreographing a piece for a competition versus choreographing something for a recital? Is there, other than the obvious differences, are there differences in uh preparation and with a competition dance versus a recital dance, or are they kind of like somewhat similar but different at the same time?
I mean, that's going to vary from artist to artist. So my answer is
Gotcha.
just going to be particular to me, because you're going to run into a dance teacher that maybe doesn't teach competition work. They only do recital pieces. So when I run into like when I run into that, I tend to find that they value what they put in to their recital pieces more heavily, because um, competition work, okay, there's a lot more pressure because you're competing against
Yeah.
teams from other studios. And this is the thing, I know I've talked about this also. When you're attending dance competitions, unless if you troll other dance studios on social media, which when I was growing up, social media wasn't even a thing when
Right.
you and I were. So you will walk into a competition blind, not knowing who you were going up against. So
Mm-hmm.
the whole mindset was, since you don't know who you're going against, you're just competing against yourself. You're you're trying to be the you're trying to be the best version of you that you can be. Like that was like what was
Yeah.
this? Yeah, but like you will walk into a competition, you look around and you'd see like you've never heard of these studios before in your life, and that would maybe mean that they're smaller and like their caliber is like not a threat to the point where you're like, I might as well just go home because I'm going to get squashed.
Yeah.
Whereas you walk into a competition, you see jackets that you've seen before and you've seen them win big, and you're like, we're doomed, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. We didn't know that until we walked into the competition, or until we were at the competition, and then that studio rolled in, and we're like, all right, well,
Uh,
let's just go be the best version of ourselves that we can be, because that's what we've been told.
let's just go out there and have fun, guys.
Right. So I think with competition routines, because the season for competitions is typically anywhere from late November, early December to most people start mid to late January to mid February would be like their first one. Um, I also have worked for studios that like their first competition was like early April.
Mhm.
You're at a disadvantage starting that late, because you might go up against studios that started in January and they've got 3 months ahead of you of stage experience, and you're
Right.
putting your team on stage for the first time in April. It's like you. I mean, that's kind of a disadvantage. I mean, in my opinion, but there are certain factors that lead to the competition starting so late. Sometimes you run into teams where the students maybe don't learn as quickly, or it takes them longer to get things clean to be ready to go on stage. Whereas some teams, it's like they'll start in late July, early August, build the piece. It's done by early to mid September, and then they spend 4 to 6 months polishing and cleaning the piece to get everything tuned up. And
Yeah.
then by the time they go out in February, they're scoring high already, rather than like, oh, first time on stage, like just try,
Yeah.
and then we'll get the judges' critiques, and then you try to polish. Then
Yeah.
there's pros and cons of both, because if you get a routine clean between December and February, and you're going to be competing this thing between February and July, by the time you get halfway to July in late April, early May, and you've been working on this piece since the previous July or August,
It's gonna be,
you're
really tight at that point.
well, it's going to be tight, but it's going to start to get stale because you've done it so
Mm.
much, and you're kind of
Yeah,
like,
that too.
I'm ready to move on from this. So,
Gotcha. Like
um,
overexposure to it to yourself.
yeah, yeah, it and I growing up, I've been in a position where we would learn a recital piece and it was so good that parents would be like, we should compete that. And after the recital, we're like, oh yeah, we love that piece, but then we draw it out for an entire year,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
by the
like,
time you're just like, okay,
by the
I'm
time
ready
we
to start
get
something.
by the time you get to the next year, we may have made adjustments for competition. Maybe say one or two kids were in the piece for recital, maybe they didn't compete, or maybe they weren't returning the next year, and you got to move things around. It's still the same song, it's still mostly the same movement, and by the time you get to the end of the next season, it's kind of like you're beating a dead horse. It's tough.
Yeah.
So again, pros and cons, everything. I have ran into like building routines in March, like speed building them, and
Hmm.
then they wind up doing so well because they're fresh, they're new, there's excitement behind it, um, and I've seen them go on to do really well. So it's like it there's no right or wrong answer, because it really depends on the choreographer, the music selection, the dancer or team that you're working with,
Hmm.
like how invested that they are in the choreography, how dedicated that they are to the practice. Um, so many variables that go into what's a better situation there. For recital pieces, I will say most like studios where they have their competition kids learning their pieces from, July and August through December, January. Those kids are seasoning those competition routines and then starting the recital routines after the new year by the time January, February floats around. Like
Gotcha.
like my one older kid recital piece for the studio that I had recital for this past weekend. There was a combination that I did just for fun back in November, and then by the time we got to late December, early January, I asked the class, like, so of the combinations that I did through the fall, like, what was your favorite? Because I taught, like I said, my first year teaching there, I'm trying to like read what resonates with
Yeah.
the students the best, or
Hmm.
what they're vibing with. So um, they're like, we really liked this one the best, and I was like, let's just make that the recital piece, and they were like, that's cool. Um, but again, I started building the routine, building the routine, building the routine, and I kept seeing like different visions in my head about like which way I wanted to go, and I kept second guessing myself. So like I hit kind of like a plateau, and instead of getting it done like a month earlier than I wanted to, it really wrapped up like 2 to 3 weeks before the recital performance.
Right.
Fortunately, that um, group, that class of students, they learn, they absorb, they they're focused, they understand correction, they work hard. So they went on stage and they did really really well. Given like I did a lot of like the moving around of the
Hmm.
formations,
Uh-huh.
and I usually wait to do that till the end in case of like injury, because if I position, and I ran into this at my one studio, and I'm going to get back to it. I started, well, actually, I'm going to say it right now. I started different studio, started building the formations for the whole piece. A particular student was there in the class when I built almost the formations for the entire routine. And then as I'm packing up and we're walking out to leave, she's like, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I don't think we're going to be able to do the recital. And I was like, and you're telling me this now? I just,
Right.
I, and she had very good reason for not being able to make it.
Hmm.
So I wished her, my best. And I came in the next week. I moved things around. Um, that routine had its tech rehearsal last night. They have dress rehearsal tomorrow. This is as of Wednesday, which is actually Thursday morning. But
Yeah.
um, so they'll have their recital tonight once this is published. And it looks good with the five that are performing it. It's not an easy piece, but they're a really fun group. Um, but yeah, that particular group, I would like their choreography had been done for a couple months. So all I had to do was move them around. Their their situation was they'd have one or two missing every week or every other week, so I wouldn't have the full group there.
Hmm.
Whereas the other studio that I said, like, I can throw them stuff and they can pretty much grab it, and they're just fast. All of them are almost always there. So that dynamic plays into itself also.
Right.
Um, there are, I will say, when
Weighing.
um, when my family was building recitals, um, there were some classes that I would understand that it was basically kids that were dancing recreationally for fun. So I wasn't there to stress them out. So I wasn't building anything super immaculate. It was more so like, how do I make this clean and legible? And when I say legible, I mean from the audience perspective, they're watching kids up there having fun, and it's not too intricate and messy because it's the content is too much for them to handle, right?
Right.
I would get carried away sometimes because my brain likes to try to do too much
Of
sometimes.
course. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, we do that. Um, because I feel like when I try to keep it simple and clean, that I'm being lazy. That's my complex that I have. Um,
I agree. I'm
yeah,
the same way.
yeah. So I mean, there. I think that our opening numbers I would try to keep fun. Our finale numbers I would try really hard, because it's like, if you sat through the entire show and you're in the audience, you deserve to see something that had an obvious time investment involved. The opening number, we usually were like, let's keep this fun, let's keep this light, let's just make it high energy. The crowd's going to be excited that the show's happening. They're not going to be like reading into what does choreography look like. They just want to see their kids on stage having fun. Boom, cool. The
Right.
finale, the finale, like I said, if the audience had sat there for 2 hours and some change, we tried to dedicate like our creativity. We tried to like group out the kids a little bit more, than just everyone do this, and then everyone do this, and then everyone do this. Like, we try to provide a little bit more dynamic and depth to the creativity.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess that would be the elaborate answer on my end. If I'm
Yeah.
if I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and if I'm speaking in terms of people that, or teachers that don't work with competition kids, they're going to invest their creativity into the recital pieces a little bit more than, say, someone that does competition. We're putting like pretty much everything we've got into making the piece as successful as it can be on a competition level, right? That's
Gotcha.
I think, building a recital piece, it's more so like there's different dynamics there, because it's like, is this a recital piece where it's mostly competition kids in the recital routine? Because
Hmm.
you can do more, because the competition kids train in the studio more times a week, 95% of the time, which means the more training that they're doing, the more seasoned that they are, the more skill sets, and the caliber is higher than 99% of the time than a recreational student that shows up to dance once a week.
Right.
It's like with anything, but I always use going to the gym as an example. Like, someone that goes to the gym once a week and works out versus someone that goes to the gym 5 times a week, you're going to see the results on that person more so than that person. It's
100%.
100%. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meh, meh.
Yeah. Yeah. We always get lost talking about our passions, don't we?
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's talk about sports real quick.
Let's.
Okay, so we so
So
we so
yeah.
we started off the episode with that NBA chat, right? I mean, the game three, what was going on towards the end of the game three, towards the end of the game. Definitely not a one-sided finals. It's
Like I said,
pretty.
yeah, I think this is definitely going 7 games. I didn't think it was going to be a game 7 type of series. I thought it was either going to be a 5 or 6 game series, but the way that this is panning out so far, Celtics are up 2-1, and how it's been going, Boston Warriors, Boston, and we have one more in Boston. Hey, if Boston gets another one, it'll be tough coming at what I don't see the Warriors losing. I don't see the Warriors getting I don't see them losing the championship in their own house. But I think it's gonna go to a game 7. I think it's gonna be a good series.
Well, if that's what you're saying, the thing is if Boston wins game four and they're up 3-1 in the series, and they go back to San Francisco, and the Warriors win game five and the series is at 3-2, they go back to Boston. It's like
Yeah,
Celtics might just win at game six and like surprise
yeah,
everybody. I mean,
yeah.
uh,
It's a good possibility too.
I think the Warriors winning game four and tying the series at two is what will keep it really interesting. Because
Yes.
if you know it's going to be if they go back to San Fran and the series is tied at 2, and the Warriors win Game 5 and it's 3-2, then they go back to Boston. Celtics win Game 6, and then it's back to San Fran, and it comes down to Game 7. That I think is like the likelihood of where we're going. If I'll tell you, if the Celtics win Game 4
Mhm.
in Boston, and then they go back to San Fran, and the Warriors win Game 5, and then it goes back to Boston, and the Warriors win in Boston Game 6, that will be even more interesting. That'd
Yeah.
that'd make Game 7 be like, oh my god, there's no answer. There's like,
Yeah. Because, like they say, like, game 7, there's no game plans. All things are out the window. It's just pretty much who wants it more.
yeah,
It's, 48 minutes of, blood, sweat, and tears. That's what a game seven's like. It's, you know, all out on the floor. Who wants it more?
I
So,
I will say I think San Fran. I think the Warriors winning. I mean, the Warriors winning Game 4 definitely has me feeling confident that they can still win it, but not until Game 7.
hmm
The Celtics winning Game 4 really has me feeling like they could win it Game 6 at home. I
I would say it's a 50% chance that if they win game 4, 50% chance they might take it out by 6.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't see them winning game 5 if they win game 4.
Yeah,
I can see them, going back to Boston up 3-2 and having a good chance to,
just win the
win it in
series Game
Boston.
6. Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Well,
depends on how they come out next game cuz again, I think the Warriors will definitely come out again like they did in game 2, and it's definitely hard just playing. It's always definitely hard playing in Boston.
right.
I mean, my my dad's always not not that he's never been a Boston fan, but he has his you know teams where he's like, yeah, well they like to cheat in their home court, so I mean they usually have the upper hand. It's usually like Boston, Utah. Like those are the only, and I think that comes from like me being a Bulls fan back then. Celtics were always like that. The Utah Jazz were big. Things like if you were playing in Utah, the Utah were always going to get the calls, and the visiting team was always going to get the worst calls. But yeah, I mean, Boston it has so much history and legendary status in there. I mean, Larry Bird, um, you know, everybody on that team, but it just playing in the Garden and being able to, you know, get to a game and into a finals in that, you know, uh Jason Tatum, I didn't get to watch all of the game tonight, but this is something for like Jason Tatum being in the first finals is something that if he can win it in his first finals, that'll definitely be something for him to be, putting himself on the map of, taking himself into one of the bigger guys of the future. You know,
Yeah, I mean, and like, look, I am not for or against either team. I have watched both teams uh, in postseason games, and I've seen them both be spectacular.
hmm
Like, I the the Warriors, I believe, were playing the Mavericks, and I think I said this on the last episode. I was like, oh my god, these guys are insane. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, but to watch Boston go up against them, and now we're up in the series 2-1. I'm like, you can't deny Boston is a good team. Like,
yeah,
and yeah, I just
and they haven't
it's
been in the finals since like the early 2000s when I think it was you know Garnett, Allen, and Paul Pierce on the team. I think Boston hasn't seen a finals or at least the play. Well, I think they've gotten in the playoffs, but they haven't seen a finals run since the uh, era with Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce. So they've had a good couple years where they've been knocked out of the finals before, either in the Eastern Conference Finals or getting into the Eastern Conference Finals. They've been getting knocked out the last couple of years, so they finally broke the barrier to get into the finals. So this is like we finally got over the hump. So now this is like our chance to get the big win. And with the Warriors, it's just, they've been here before and they're just trying to get another one, So they're the team with the experience.
Yeah, I think it's wild to think like, Jason Tatum had just turned 24 years old like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And
It's
and
insane.
and Steph Curry had just turned 34 years old like 3 months ago. Like, to think that they're 10 years apart.
Yeah.
I mean, Steph Curry is just obviously 10 years beyond Jason Tatum like season, but it's scary to think how much better Jason Tatum can be going
Mhm.
in the next decade. It's
He's got a full career ahead of him.
Yeah, that's
So,
wild. Uh,
mhm.
I just want to say best of luck to both teams. It's great to see them both uh, trying to do this,
Whoopsie.
and it's nice to see a series where it's not like, okay, after 3 games in, it's a 3-0 lead, and it's just kind of like it's not even fun.
Yeah.
So I just get away from basketball just because I am not like real seasoned in basketball. Um, I mean, I'm not real seasoned in most any sport at all, but I have to piggyback off the shit I
Whoopsie.
was talking last week on the Philadelphia Phillies because
Yeah, but it's cool that you've been getting into sports over the last couple years, and
I,
it's cool to see you kind of just dabbing into the football and baseball and basketball, because I know, like, when we were younger, I mean, you not that you didn't want anything to do with sports, but sports was like not your thing to really talk about. But it's cool that it's been you've found that interest to be like, okay, I mean, I'm willing to kind of just watch a game and get into the mindset and everything. So it's been cool to kind of talk sports about it too.
yeah, I mean, I think right after graduating high school, I started getting into like the Eagles, but I would only I mean, I know I was like into the Sixers in 8th grade because that's when they went to the championship and like Allen Iverson was big.
Yeah.
Um, but I was the kind of kid that like I'd only watch the Philly sports teams. Now I'm like, no,
Hmm.
I'll literally watch a game if I know it's a good matchup because
Oh yeah.
I want to see a good matchup. Like I'm like
Yes.
actually like interested and invested and um I'm I'm at the point where it's like I almost know like which sports teams are in which conference.
Hmm.
Some I know like the divisions that they're in.
Yeah.
Um, I'm still not tuned in on like the players on other teams.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm just getting good having watched the Phillies as much this season with like who's who. Because
Uh huh.
before the season, I didn't know who anybody was except for Bryce Harper, obviously. Um,
Yeah, and I've been the same way with I think out of the sports, baseball has been, you know, not the least favorite, but the least that I know about. I mean, usually with Jen, she played softball in college, so usually a lot of my baseball knowledge comes from her.
right,
And where she was not much of a basketball person, so sometimes if she's like watching a basketball game, it's usually coming from me because she won't watch a basketball game by herself more than anything else, so she'll be watching it with me.
right.
uh but and I guess that's with hockey too. Like I know enough about hockey, but I don't really know a lot of players unless they're like the top guys in the league or something, or maybe a handful of top guys that are in the league. Uh, but it's like you said, like with those type of sports, it's like, okay, if I'm gonna watch something, I just want to watch a good game.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to be, not just entertained, but you're going to see a good matchup between two teams. And I think that's from a not necessarily a non-fan, but as somebody who's trying to get into the sport, that's a good way to kind of, keep yourself interested because you want to see the sport being played by the best, players, and you want to see a good game.
Sure.
Instead of just a regular season, like, oh, okay, it's just another night, and nothing of like, substance. So
Exactly. Because, like, I mean, games where it's like low scoring on both teams, to me, it's like, okay, well, it's good defense. Offense needs to
yeah,
like try to break through. It can be interesting, but if it goes on into the third quarter and it's like 0-0, I'm like, what is this? What are these offenses doing? Right.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, but then it's like, if it's a high scoring game on both teams, and it's like, what are these defenses doing? Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then if it's a landslide, it's like, well, this one's already in the bag, and like I don't even care. When it gets back
Yeah.
and forth and interesting, where it's like one quarter, one team is doing really good, and then like it's even keel second quarter. I'm talking football specifically, and then third quarter,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the team that was the underdog takes the lead, but then the team that was leading early on in the game gets to the lead, and then it's like interesting into the fourth quarter. Those are the games that I like. It's a lot
Right.
more interesting there. Um, but yeah, I gotta. I'm the Phillies are now, as of Thursday, June 9th, 2022, 12:39 a.m. 6-game winning streak after they had been losing a ton, and
Yeah.
They fired Joe Girardi, and I'm over here like, how are you gonna fire that guy when the players are playing like this? They fired Joe Girardi, and now the team is just like killing it. Swept the Angels. I forget who was the last game that they played before the Angels. I forget who they beat.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It was the Giants on uh,
Okay, that's right. Yeah.
that was last Wednesday, June 1st, and then they just beat the Brewers last night and tonight for their 6-game winning streak. Hopefully, they can sweep Milwaukee tomorrow. The game's at 2. I have
Yeah. I
I
mean,
have
it's kind
some.
of funny how they just, I mean, it must have lit a fire under them because and I guess just with any sport, I mean, the thing is like, you should never think that your spot can never be replaced. Like you can always be traded, you can always be replaced. So you should never think that your position is guaranteed, even if you're a top guy. Because going into, what we were talking about a little bit with the Last Dance, how Scottie Pippen was, talking about the fact that when he came into the league, he signed a contract for a low ball contract, not knowing that I think there was some schemes in there that he could have been making a lot more, but he signed the contract in a way that kind of locked him in for a good amount of years. But at that time, they were thinking about probably just trading him too.
Mm,
So he just figured, okay, well, I'm just gonna. He had an injury coming into that last season, which they were talking about the Last Dance, but he was kind of fighting with the owners and his contract and everything. And the thing was, the fact is, they were thinking about trading him. They were thinking about doing this and that. He's like, well, I'm probably one of the best players in the league at this point, and I'm not even making probably a fifth of what I should be making. So I'm just going to worry about me. And I think Jerry Cross was the one. Correct me if I'm wrong, people, if you're hearing this, but saying that like anybody can be traded. You know, just because you might be one of the better players on the team, if we find a better deal, we're going to trade you. So it's in a way with sports, I think a lot of people forget that sports are a business before trying to make people happy about like, oh, okay, well, this guy is playing this way, that the guy's playing this way. Number one, it's always business always comes before a lot of things. So, you know, if there's a better offer on the table, 9 times out of 10, those people are going to take it if it's worth it.
oh
So,
yeah,
uh, but for the fact that one of those things like with him getting fired, if it set a fire with those guys to be like, hey, this is something we need to change. Maybe that's a thing. And hey, I mean, I haven't been watching the Phillies too much to really know about Joe Girardi, but when he came into the league, or when he came into Philly, I'm like, all right, well, coming from the Yankees, and with what he did with the Yankees, we might get some wins. We might even possibly get back into the finals.
That's
Didn't really happen,
that's how I felt.
and it didn't really happen. So, I mean, it is what it is. And sometimes I think, well, maybe it just wasn't Joe. Maybe it was, upper management, and maybe it was this too. And sometimes you got to think of the players too. But I think there's, and it goes with basketball too. I think sometimes the head coach is not always the first one you should be blaming, because the coach isn't the one out there playing the games. Obviously the players are out there first. He's only, you know, he's the coach coaching the players to make sure that they're getting better and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, Joe's not the one out there on the mound pitching the ball, or he's not the one up at bat, so he can only do so much. But it is what it is. And again, that's business. But they're on a 10-game winning streak, so hey, they it had to have worked in some way with them being on a win streak.
Yeah, I mean, 6 games, but I mean, it's been, I don't know how long since I heard the Phillies win 6 in a row. And
Yeah,
for anyone that's like, well, they're playing not the greatest of teams, it's like, well, Milwaukee they have a pretty high up their win percentage. And the thing is, my buddy and I were talking about this last night. They don't hit super well, but their pitching is really good. Whereas the Phillies, we can hit. Our pitching is not as strong as it was 2008 when we were winning the World Series.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I will still sit here and say Corey Knebel, our closer, gives me a panic attack every time that we are up, and he is our closer in the 9th inning. I'm like,
Here we go.
don't you freaking dare screw this up, because
Yeah.
he has, and not just kind of, but like royally, real bad. And I'm like, we
In that game we were watching, he first hit, and they were it was the game before the Giants game, I think. I forget who they were playing, but they were up. Uh and he hit first pitch, the guy hits a grand slam. It was one of the rookies. First not a grand slam. His first home run of his career. First pitch, and he hits a homer. And then I think they closed the lead, and they tied it at 4.
it was
So it's like,
it was the Mets.
there you go. Yeah.
And the Mets are, I mean, I don't know if they still are, but at one point they had the best record in Major League Baseball. Like, and they are easily leading the National League East, which is where the Phillies are. I mean, I can look it up. It won't take 2 seconds, but yeah, I mean, they, like, maybe the Mets are doing bad, and maybe we're not that many games back. Okay, the Phillies are currently 10 games back. Yeah, the Mets are still doing good. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
the Braves are only 7.5 games back. So we're only 2.5 games back from tying with them. I mean, 3 games back from the Braves. There's still a good amount of games left. And I think that this is why people sleep on baseball, because there's so many games. It's the oversaturation of how many games that they play.
Oh yeah.
That it's just like,
Oh yeah.
if you miss a game, it's like, oh, they won or they lost. Okay, next. Whereas, football, it's 17 games. Every game matters. So
Every
it's like,
game does matter.
so you have to tune in to those games. You can miss
Mhm.
a game, and if the Phillies lose, it's like, okay, get them next time because they play 162, 63 games a year, whatever it
Exactly.
is.
And that's same thing with basketball. I mean, basketball is 72, 80, 82 games a year. I'll have to double check on that. But you know, it's all almost the same way that, if you lose about 5 games, it's not too bad, but it's not a good thing. And then you got to get back on the bandwagon with it. But like you said, with football, losing 1 or 2 games in a row, three, that's almost a third of your season. So you definitely got to be more, manageable with being able to keep up with football and basketball. But baseball, you're playing almost like 3, 4, 5 games a week, so, you can come back a little bit more easily with baseball, but you never like to hear the losing streaks. But you play so many games that you know a 3, 4, 5 losing streak is not as detrimental as if it's like a football or a basketball losing streak.
Right. How many games did you guess for NBA?
80, I think the lowest was 72, and then 82.
82.
82. Yeah,
Some
so it's still 82.
so I'm looking at the standings for teams that didn't make it into the postseason, and they're all adding up to 82. So that's the
Yeah.
number.
Yeah, because I was thinking of the Bulls record 72-10. So I'm like, oh wait, okay, so 82.
There you go. So let's hypothesize this. Given uh, the Sixers made it into the postseason, right?
Right.
This year, and they got in last year too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they don't get past the second round, right? Like that's their thing.
No, because they lost to the Hawks before the Eastern Conference Finals. So yeah. And then this year they lost to
Boston, right? Or was it Heat?
it was the Heat. Yes, they lost to Miami.
Oh, we beat the Raptors in the first round. We lost to the Heat in the second round. Okay.
Correct.
I mean, the Phillies are currently sitting at 27-29 with a .482. So I mean they're 56 games into the season. They usually go 162 or 3. I'm pretty sure they got a late start, so it's not going to hit that number. But that means that they still have probably close to 100 games left to play.
Yeah. So there's a lot of games to play in order for to change up, and that score can be a lot different within 20 games. A lot can happen.
Yeah, I mean we're coming up from June 9th to June 30th. They have 2 days off. So in 3 weeks' time, they're playing 19 games, and then they have July where. Okay, so there's 3 days off that they have, but also 3 days for the All-Star game. So there's 6 days out of July. So they're playing 25 more games in July. And then in August, they're off 1, 2, 3 games, 3 days. So they're playing 28 games. I'm assuming no double headers on this schedule that I'm looking at, but we know that they play double headers. So
yeah.
I mean, there's 50 games there, and then September and October, it's really only showing that. Oh, okay. October, it's showing me October 1st and 2nd games. So September, it's every Monday they have off, and Thursday, September 1st, they have off. So there's 5 days out of the 32. So that's 27 more. Okay, so they have like 100 more games at least.
Yeah.
So
plenty of games to play.
I think with this current winning streak, if Joe Girardi was really a problem, we're gonna find out through the month of June. Yeah. Like in the next 3 weeks, we're gonna if they really turn it around. And I think it's fair to say who their opponents are. So in June, they play Milwaukee on Thursday the 9th, which by the time this is published was yesterday. We'll see if they sweep.
Mm-hmm.
Then we host the Diamondbacks, which apparently have not a great record. And then we host
Yeah.
um, Miami Marlins, which are beneath us in the standings. They're 24-30. So they're only 12 games back, whereas we're only 10 games back. So, I mean, we'll see. We do have home field advantage. If we're still playing solid, great. If we start taking a poopy not great. But then we go on to play a 4-game stretch against Washington Nationals at Washington, which they're at the bottom of the food chain in our division at 21-37. They're 17 games back from the Mets. So
Yeah.
even if we super error lose one of those games, I'm pretty confident that we'll win the other 3. And then we have a day off, and then we go play the Texas Rangers, and then we go play the San Diego Padre for a 4-game stretch, and then we host the Braves at home. So the Braves at home seems to be a rather genuine test.
Yeah.
The
So, like you said, I think June will be the testament of if Girardi's, being fired, if that was the issue. If they kind of go and get a couple more wins out of this month, I don't expect them to go, and be on a streak for the rest of the month. But if they can, get on a more winning streak than a losing streak than what they were, then they'll be saying something. We'll see what happens.
yeah, I mean, currently the let me see. I know we're doing a lot of baseball talk here. Our One Set fans, for those of you who aren't baseball fans, I'm just getting into it because last week I really did
Whoopsie.
on the Philadelphia Phillies.
So we're resurrecting the thought.
I mean, I'm just being fair and saying, hey, maybe this is the turnaround that the Phillies could use and they could do. I'm not saying they're going to win
Yeah.
the World Series right now. I mean, there's just way too much that they have to prove after the fact. Get a better bullpen because your bullpen terrifies me every time we get towards the end of a game.
Yeah.
I will say the Texas Rangers are 26-30, which is only one extra loss against what the Phillies record is at. So that matchup could be good by the time. Again, currently we have 11 games to play before we even go to Texas. We only play them twice, unless one of those 2 days are a doubleheader. But then we're doing a 4-game stretch in San Diego against the Padres, who are currently sitting at 34-22. Only 2 games back from the LA Dodgers that are 36-20. Mets are currently 38-20. Okay, the Yankees are 40-16. So the Yankees currently hold the best record in baseball, which no surprise. Lots of baseball to play. Anthony, real quick before we wrap up, I know we've been wanting to talk about this since we did a lot of sports talk today. Who is the next Philadelphia championship team?
Eagles.
I like it.
Not necessarily saying that they're going to win it next year. I am looking forward to seeing how they come out because I feel that they had a really good draft. The probably one of the better ones in the last couple of years. But I think out of what the Philly teams are holding right now, I think the Eagles have the best chance of taking home another championship within hopefully the next couple of years.
I will say
sooner than later.
I will say I am more, and this is maybe because the Phillies are doing good right now, or not good, but they're hitting a stride per se.
Yeah.
What did the Eagles even finish at last season? Do we know?
It was it 9-7? I think they only won 9 games. No, it would have been 9-8 because they had 17 games, not 16 games. They started the 17 game.
They were 9-8, so they were just
There you go.
okay. Their percentage was 0.529. Um, I mean, for the
Because I
Dal-
think they got on like a little run at the end
for
to
the
kind of help them back,
for the Dallas Cowboys to be 12-5, and
and they lost in the first playoff game. So
ha,
so
yeah,
ha ha.
um, I'm
Not
gonna
the first
say
time they've done that.
here, here's my thing. Because in baseball you can lose a game in the postseason and have another chance because it's a
Yeah,
series.
right.
In football, it's like once you lose, you're out, you're done.
Do or die.
Once you get to the postseason, um, I think with someone like Bryce Harper, someone like Nick Castellanos. I mean, Castellanos is my favorite of the new guys. Obviously, Bryce is as great as he is because
Hmm.
he won't have been offered the money that he was if he wasn't that great.
Right.
Um, there is a lot of potential on the team, especially amongst the younger guys. I think Alec Boehm, offer him more money, keep him longer. He's definitely an asset. Um, I cannot believe the Alec Boehm and Matt Vierling back to back home runs last night that got us up 3-2 against Hader from the Brewers that had us lead the game. I'm laying in bed watching it. Cheyenne's asleep, so I can't even be like roaring excited. I'm just like, I can't wait. I can't wait for her to wake up and figure out who won the game and how we won the game because we always called Matt Vierling trash can because the guy couldn't do anything. Couldn't
Right.
do anything. So you're going with the Eagles. I'm going to say the Phillies. I think you and I agree the Sixers, they're postseason
They're
material, but they're not.
not championship material. They still got a couple more puzzle pieces to figure out, but they're there, but they're not. Like I said, if even if they got past Miami, they were not going to beat Boston.
So the way you're saying it is they're there, all lowercase letters, dot, 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 but they are not there, caps locks there.
Yeah,
Whereas you watch the Celtics and you watch the Warriors and you're like, they're there. I mean, obviously they're in the championship, but you watch them play and you're like, they're there for a reason. I mean, there's a reason why the Mavericks didn't make it. I think they just put all their eggs in Luka Doncic. Like they just expect him to carry the team. And then the
yeah,
Suns,
and he's a great player. But
yeah,
like I said, I don't follow Mavericks too much other than what he's been doing. But yeah, I mean he's definitely going to be a dominant player.
I think so
So
too. And again, I mean, the Suns, Devin Booker being out late like he was, that definitely hurt him. I mean,
yeah, they'll be back in though.
absolutely.
I would like to see Chris Paul get a ring before he hangs his shoes up because he's definitely one that I mean there's been a lot of guys like I don't wait yeah Dwayne Wayne got a ring but there's been a lot of guys that were greats. Barkley, I don't he's one of the ones. Did he? I might be wrong. I don't think he won a ring. He didn't win with the Sixers, did he? I'll have to look that up. But again, my point is there are a lot of players that are in the top 50 greatest basketball players, but some of them never really won a championship. But they're great basketball players. But Devin Booker, same you know lineups with Tatum and the guy from the Mavericks, all those guys that are coming up now. They're the future of the NBA. So there's going to be some really good battles coming up in the years to come.
Yeah, I just Googled how many rings does Charles Barkley have. Charles Barkley scored 23,757 points and grabbed 12,546 rebounds in his career, but he never won an NBA title. We don't know who
There you go.
started this. You ain't nothing without the bling thing in pro sports, but it has got to stop as soon as possible, if not earlier. Is what the person.
Yes, I mean Barkley is a great basketball player. He's one of the 50 greatest players, but again, one of those guys never won a championship. So, but yeah, the future's bright with the NBA. They got a lot of good players, and that's what all you have to do is just have these guys like Stephen Curry and all those guys, LeBron, just paving the way for the guys that are coming up in the league. So because I think LeBron's you know easing towards the end of his career. Curry's getting towards the end of his career. Kevin Durant, all those guys, they've been in for a good couple years. So we only have a couple more years with those guys until some of the younger dudes are going to start taking it into the league. So
Absolutely.
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully this next game 4 is going to be another slobber knocker.
Slobber. Yeah, I think
And
by the time we do the recording next week for the next episode, episode 24, there is a game scheduled for Monday night. So we'll be at game 5. So, I mean, the Celtics, if they breeze through the next 2 games, we'll have champions to talk about. Otherwise,
yeah,
looking forward to follow up on this discussion next time. Maybe keep it a little bit lighter because we did heavy sports talk today. We do have some wrestling things, not super other than like CM Punk being the AEW champion, except he's getting surgery. He got hurt. Now they're going to do this whole tournament thing to crown an interim champion. And Cody Rhodes was set to be almost definitely the Money in the Bank winner.
He got injured.
He's got the torn pec. We've all seen the bruise that he worked through for the Hell in a Cell match. Dude's crazy. So, I mean, there's a lot up in the air with wrestling. So it's like you can talk about things, but it's a lot of speculation. So that's why we've been kind of holding off. We'll wait until we get a little bit closer to Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, both coming up in July. Anth, anything else before we wrap up for tonight?
I think good. I plugged my show. If anybody want to hear it again,
wait,
June 18th.
What time do you play?
4 to 7.
Okay, I don't remember you saying that earlier, so I just wanted to make sure everyone caught what time that you're on at.
Yeah, so 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. June 18th in Egg Harbor, New Jersey, at the Retinol Winery Resorts. And if you guys are looking and trying to come out, reservations are recommended as per what the Retinol Winery says on the weekends. So if you guys want to come hang out, have a drink, some food, and listen to some live music, feel free to come out, make a reservation, stop in and say hi. Other than that, this has been another episode of One Set. Thank you guys for all the support. Make sure you guys like us on Facebook, Instagram. Give us a hit that subscribe button and like this episode on YouTube. If you guys are watching on any podcast platforms, make sure you guys hit us up and rate, review. It helps us in the charts. And our video is available on Spotify. So all you Spotify users, you guys have the video available there. And if you guys want to send us some questions, send us a what's up, make sure you guys send us an email at it's onesetpod@gmail.com. So thank you guys, brother. Love you. Cheers to you guys.
Love you, my dude.
Love you too.
Until next time.
Till next time.
Till next time.